Hey everyone, welcome to the Industry Show. I'm your host Nitin Bajaj, and joining me today is Jillian Manus. Jillian, welcome on the show.
It's my pleasure, Nitin. Thank you for inviting me.
Pleasure is all ours. So let's get started with who is Jillian?
Yeah, well, I've been asking myself that for very many years, so not quite sure I have it right yet. Um, Jillian is a woman who has been on a very circuitous trajectory of both personal journey and professional, um, going from banking and the film industry and the publishing and technology investment and always keeping a very mindful hat on the um, to the to the challenges in society that are now being revealed through the pandemic. But I know personally, from someone who's built shelters, I've built domestic abuse shelters. I actually, at one point in my life, was homeless. So I know what the societal stressors are, have been, and are even more pronounced now. So when I invest in order to elevate society and individuals, not just to see a return.
Well, Jillian, I know we will not be able to do justice to all of the work and the amazing achievements you've had and continue to have, but we will do what we can just today and then keep bringing you back on to discuss each aspect of your life. I'm amazed at the phenomenal achievements that you've had, but I also know you're not the one to rest on your laurels. So, well, let's talk about what is structured capital.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So Structure Capital is an early stage fund. We are going on our 8th year. We were partners. There are three of us: Mike Walsh, Jacob Shea, and myself. We invest into companies which our overarching thesis is underutilized assets and excess capacity. So doing better with what we have.
Mhm.
That is whether it is our cars, such as Uber. We were an early investor in Uber. Space, such as Sonder,
Mhm.
and Peerspace, Breather, such as even tow trucks. How do we take a fragmented marketplace and really start to roll it up to deliver roadside service and be able to activate, mobilize tow trucks better, more efficiently? And really, that actually is part of a bigger infrastructure play when you look at how communities and transportation is challenged. So we look at logistics. We look at last mile for trucks, Cargomatic. So we're looking at what is the underutilized assets. But if you take it one step further than that, which is one of my areas of particular interest, is I see people as being underutilized assets. And we see how do we optimize people's potential. And now with the automation of really everything, how do we, instead of marginalizing the most marginalized thus far, how do we reskill, upskill, position, and optimize true potential in people? I see AI, everybody is
Mhm.
scared that it's going to replace everyone, but I feel that if we actually act with intentionality in terms of educating and elevating people, we will be a much more competitive society, and a much more caring society.
I love that mission and I love that focus with which you invest. And a lot of the companies that you mentioned, I personally use them and I'm a big fan.
Right.
So you're doing some amazing work.
Fantastic. Well, I love to hear that. I mean, we like marketplaces too.
Mhm.
WAG is one of our companies, and once again, it's been putting people to work. You think that's just on-demand dog walking, but it's actually it's providing jobs for whoever really wants them. And they have a very interesting um, group of dog caregivers. And I really like it. We've heard of wonderful stories from them. So, yeah.
That's amazing. Tell us, you've invested across a broad spectrum, like you mentioned, of companies, of, the why, keeping that together. What's the size and scale, if you will? How many companies have you invested in? And if you're open to share, what kind of investments have you
Sure.
made?
Sure. So you better be sitting down for this because we have invested in over 90 companies, actually over
Wow.
100 companies, over 3 funds. So the first fund was very small, it was a $10 million fund, and we made smaller bets. But they all, we've had, Carta was in that fund, Sonder was in that fund. We've had Uber or something. We've had some really, really good companies in which we then raised the second fund and took 21 of those companies for follow-ons. So all those companies we then followed on into fund 2. It was a larger fund, but this is a very unique type of scenario because we only raised 40 million in the second fund, and yet we had, from our LPs, we had over 125 million in direct investment into our portfolio. So ostensibly, we almost had a 200 million because we deployed 200 million into our companies. So I think that we didn't charge a fee. We didn't charge, it was just, we wanted our investors, we wanted our LPs to have ownership of these companies, not just through us, but in that way, they would provide our companies with true value, whether it be introductions, just strategy, navigating some difficult challenges. And so that was the way we brought in our LPs into a more of an action, not just investment role.
I love that concept of true ownership, right?
Yeah,
It's not just writing a check, but coming on board
yeah,
and helping out in every which way you can with your knowledge, with, as we say, time, talent, and capital.
yeah. Time, talent, and capital, absolutely. And then our third fund was a growth fund, and it just took 6 of our top performing companies and did more substantial follow-ons in range from 3 to 5 million. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Is there a particular industry? I know you talked about efficiencies, both in terms of assets, but also people.
right.
Are there specific industries or an industry that you're really excited about?
Yeah, so I thought I saw this question before and I thought to myself, oh my gosh, it's like asking me who my favorite child is, because if you knew me, you'd be like, okay, you would not ask this woman this question, but I'm going to pick 2 of the top ones,
Sure.
right? And I'll tell you why. I'm a Dean's Fellow at Stanford Medical School, and I've sat on the Digital Health Board. And because of my investment because of my personal and my foundation's investment, and our mission is to create passive self-sufficiency for women and children. And the 2 areas really are around basic needs, and healthcare is one of the basic needs, and food is one of the basic needs, and basically providing every person, like Maimonides, instead of giving someone fish, you give them a fishing rod
Yes.
and teach them how to fish. And that's really where my soul is at in anything that I do. And so I really looking a lot around healthcare and how to deliver it and how to create more, obviously how to democratize healthcare. And so whether it be a digital health company that mobilizes healthcare labor forces, whether it's using computer visualization for medicine reconciliation, whether there are a lot of different areas, whether it's creating a better communication platform for physician and patients. We've invested in telehealth platform called Hurdle for the minority, for Black and Brown population. That's an area that I'm deeply committed to, because I think if we're not, and by the way, these are not all sexy companies,
Right.
nor are they like devices, right? Or they're not pharma, they're not, they're basics. How do we diagnose our population with democratized diagnostics, right? How do we provide people with care where they are, not just where we want them to be, right? How do we move hospitals into the home? How do we, and so this is, this gets my, this rocks my socks. And so that's one area. And then another area is around jobs. And I think that one of the companies that I work with, and I work a lot with the Department of Defense in a lot of different areas, and that's for another show to explain that side of me. But I've worked in the military for most of my life and in many different positions. And so one of what I truly think, and it's tethered right back to our thesis, which is underutilized assets and excess capacity. One of the highest talent pools, most high quality and most underutilized and diverse talent pools in the United States is our military veterans.
Yes.
Those who are serving and then transitioning out of the military, for which there are around 250,000 a year. Only a small percentage of them have jobs. And then even the ones that have jobs, are they jobs worthy of their skills? And so one of our companies is called Shift, which is really changing the paradigm of how we transition, how you identify and match military skills into the private sector using technology, using algorithms to do so, and then layering it with education in terms of filling those gaps. So I'm really, another company of ours is The Muse, and it's working a lot with millennials and how to transition them out of college and then into their first jobs. And so I see that job transitions, and back to the name of our company, Shifts, is a critical piece of how we are going to move society forward and how we're going to enable those to better understand their skills, their worth, and then how to position that for a job worthy of them. So those are my sort of two main areas: is how to upskill, reskill, and transition skilled labor forces into potentially either other lanes or just either horizontally or vertically. So I think there are a lot of companies right now that we also work with, and we, as well as the Department of Labor, when I say we, Shift, where they're trying to understand what their present skill, their labor force, the skills are such, so that when they do automate a certain area, they can actually be able to take those in that area and redirect them, and reskill them into other departments, because they have maybe 80% of the skills needed, but they're missing the 20%. And so how do we identify at that, and how do we fill that? So these are two areas that I'm very, very interested in, to the labor force, the future of labor, and the future of healthcare.
Jillian, I don't know how this is possible, but my respect for you keeps growing when I think that I cannot respect a person more. I learn more about you, and I find a new threshold for my respect. This is
very
it's
kind.
amazing.
You make me blush. I'm blushing. I'm blushing. I think we're all, we're all evolving. And this is what we do. If you don't evolve every day, if you don't learn something new every day, then that's on you. That's on you. So I'm just continuing to teach and evolve.
So tell me, obviously you have a lot of experience, a lot of exposure, you live multiple lives in a day. What's the biggest challenge you're facing right now?
Yeah, personal or professional?
We'll take both.
Well, no, personal is I really don't have enough time in the day, and I'm really struggling and how to prioritize so that I get the most done. I don't sleep a whole lot. So that's that, everybody, if you read any of those books, they say, well, if you don't sleep a lot, you're going to die early. And so I'm like counting my days till I'm like, boop. Maybe that's part of the problem. Um, I'm almost addicted to information,
Mhm.
I'm like a curiosity addict.
Yes.
I'm an information junkie. And so I am constantly, embedded in everything. And I have a hard time saying no, but, that's on me. And I have to learn how to figure out how to, but I don't know if I can. And my, my conscious says, yes, you should. And my subconscious said, no, there's no way you can. And so like, don't even try. So that's my personal challenge. And then my professional challenge, I think that just in venture, in investment right now environment, there's so much money,
Mhm.
and that is good news and that's bad news. It's a burden and it's a blessing. On one hand, it's a blessing because there are a lot more companies, they're having the opportunity and access to funds that otherwise would not be. And so there are many minority investments being made, which is necessary and absolutely long overdue. So on one hand, I feel like that is, thank goodness for that. And I hope it's not going to be too little too late. But I'm hoping, and I'm seeing some really big investments into minority emerging managers and into founders. And I'm myself am doing that as an angel as well. Um, what I worry about and what I'm seeing is these really, really frothy valuations
Mhm.
that are built on nothing but a wing and a prayer. And if I hear one more founder say, well, so and so did that, I'm like, so if you were to, jump off a bridge, if so and so jumped a bridge, would you then follow it? It doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right thing. And it just, there are no numbers, there's no data to support these valuations, and there's not the traction. There's, you can forecast anything, but a forecast is like, as far as I'm concerned, it means nothing, as well as a business plan at the very early stages, because your company is going to go through so many different, pushes and pulls, and it's going to pivot. And so I worry deeply about these valuations. And I think that what I say to entrepreneurs, and I'm hoping there's some in this audience that are going to listen to me and really take this to heart, is that if you overvalue your company, you are setting your company up potentially for a very big failure. And you're putting yourself and your team under incredible duress at the very beginning. And if you do not hit these numbers, you're going to lose the trust of your
Mhm.
investors, and you're really going to lose the trust. You're going to lose your own confidence. And so I really believe you don't want to see a down round. You don't want to see a flat round. You want to see just a steady pace uh, of, of increased value for your company that's based on true outcomes. And I think if you start here, there's only a small bit until you hit a ceiling. If you start here, you're just going to build the momentum of trust. You're going to build the momentum of outcomes and of the product. And so I really am asking all of you who are listening to think about this, because I personally have seen so many companies. I mean, I could say at least like dozens, tens of dozens, maybe even 100 over the last years, who have set themselves up for failure by just pulling a valuation out of the sky and thinking that this is, that's just not responsible. And believe it or not, there are some investors, good investors, who won't even invest in your company because they see that your valuation represents irresponsibility. And that's a big flag.
Yeah, and in these times when there is so much money, it
Yeah.
may be very tempting, right, to
Yeah,
come in and
absolutely.
just do it. But then, like you said, for the right company, there is always funding available. And if you do it right and get the right investors on board,
For sure.
Even if money runs out, you will still get the funding.
Absolutely. But absolutely. I mean, an investor would rather also, the other thing is, if you start to elevate the valuation, you're going to actually knock out a lot of investors who you really want to have in, because at the very beginning, or even anywhere along in the early stages, such as the C, the A, B, you're going to want smart money. You're going to want investors who are going to come with muscle and mind, not just with money.
Mhm.
And if you start to just look at a valuation and look at the dollar signs, you're not going to be able to create a composition of investors that are going to help you build your company. And that is what you need, everyone. Please, that is what you need. You need people going to roll up their sleeves and help you build a company. You don't need just money. And so be mindful of that as well. Be mindful of that.
That's really good insight, especially in these times when, there's so
Everybody's
much
throwing
money
money.
out there. Yes. On the flip side of a challenge, Jillian, what's a big opportunity you're targeting?
Yeah. So I think I'm really excited about this medicine reconciliation
Mhm.
area. And I think I just giving you guys, because you'll be the first ones to hear about this because this company is stealth, but medicine reconciliation is basically around drug collision.
Mhm.
So there's a very high percentage of people who end up back in the hospital uh, after they've been sent home, because they take their new medicine with something that that they an allergy medicine that they suddenly need, or something that actually creates a drug collision and then ends them back up in the hospital. But this happens frequently with everything we do. You're constantly taking something that you need for maybe, one day enough, you feel a little inflammation, or whatever it is, and you layer on a drug that you don't realize is either creating a negative reaction that's creating a burden on your system that you don't even know of, or it actually presents itself as a real health risk in which you do see symptoms. This is a big issue for insurance companies, every stakeholder in health. And so physicians, for the patient, for caregivers, for hospitals, for everyone, pharmacies, this is a very big problem, because people, have you ever started, like, have you gone to a doctor where they say, what medicines you on? You list all of them, but you forgot like three because you take it sometimes, but you don't know, or you spell something wrong. Nobody has their whole list of medications. It's called the brown bag, where you bring all your medicines in a brown bag. And then this is a big problem. So basically, there was a company that was working on a computer visualization, and it's fascinating to manufacturers to identify the flaws in manufacturing Tomahawk missiles. So this was a computer visualization that was used for defense, that now has been adopted to identify. You can scan your pill, it'll identify the dosage, the type of pill, and alert to the negative reactions. And then it will do so much more than that. But this is a game changer. Like in the United States, this is a game changer. And so I'm fascinated to crack open the the applications of technology that are so off our radar,
Mhm.
that how can we think horizontally,
Yeah.
not just vertically, about applications from the Defense Department to drug reconciliation, to medicine reconciliation. How do we do that? One of the programs in Shift in this is there's something called Defense Ventures, where the DoD is paying Shift to take some of their highest level being groomed for, captains and generals and their highest level of talent, they put them into venture funds for 8 weeks. And then they learn skills, assessment skills, research, but they also dive into the portfolios of these venture funds, and Andreessen and Benchmark, all these big venture funds. They dive into their portfolios to see how, if they can identify applications to the military, to the Department of Defense, that wouldn't maybe not been understood or recognized. I've had a number of these defense fellows in structure, and it's just been absolutely fascinating to see what has been revealed and what the Department of Defense can use. And then we also obviously have always had things from NASA and from the military that we applied into for civilians. But how do we do that in reverse? And so I think that that's an area that I see the biggest opportunity to start thinking horizontally around these applications, not just vertically.
And I can think of no one better suited than you to do this, right? Drawing from so many of your different perspectives and experiences. That's amazing.
It's really fascinating. I mean, even this, we call the company Scriptsy. I actually branded the company because you see the script and it has personality. And when you brand a company, which is something that I'm very much invested in, when you name a company, I always feel it should be a name, something you can spell easily, something you can remember easily, something that has a personality trait of the product, and that you could globally scale. So Scriptsy. So, but it was interesting when I literally spoke to so many people before I invested in this company. One was the head of the anesthesiologists, I kid you not, President Anesthesiologist Association. And I just called everyone, and he said, Jillian, this is huge, because one of the biggest problems is we get into surgery and we don't know one of the medicines that the patient had been taking, and it happened to be in their drug closet, in their cabinet. They didn't realize because they don't take it every day. They didn't realize to tell us this, or they spelled a drug incorrectly, and we don't know until we get into surgery. And this is a big liability for us. So it's just fascinating to see where opportunities, but you really have to educate yourself every day, right? To start thinking this way, not just this way.
But then in your case, you're thinking this way.
I'm kind of thinking this way.
Yeah.
Or this way. So, sort of like, it's a lot, but I also believe that whatever I do, and I make a concerted effort to leverage everything that I'm doing with each other. So whatever I'm doing in medicine or whatever I'm doing venture, that it has some impact to my foundation. Maybe it can deliver something to homeless, maybe, and my work with Shift is driven partly because about 30% of homeless are actually vet families. And so I look at how I can leverage all of my activities, all my energy, all my resources, so that they lift each other, right? And so you'll see a lot of intersection points in my life.
Like I said, my respect for you keeps growing. You are one person that I know is firing on all cylinders. So that's awesome.
We're finding new cylinders every day.
Yep. Yes.
As we all need it, right?
When you look back in the rearview mirror, is there a lesson learned or a success story that you're really proud of and you want to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. A while ago, we invested in a company called WorkPath. And to make a long story very short, the founders of this company were not running the company properly at all. It's an understatement, and that's a whole nother story. We then found out, and I was on the board of this company, and it mobilizes healthcare workforces, and they were burning through like 450,000 a month. There was basically no revenues. The numbers were not as they weren't being communicated properly, let's put it that way. There was just a lot going wrong with this company. And then I find out that the president of the company had been keeping from the investors, or from the board, that there was a sexual harassment suit against the company. So I literally dug, and that was serendipitous that we found this out. And it turns out that the president himself had actually was the one who was the suit was against. And so we had to fire the president right on the spot, tell him to just leave. You got the founders that were misbehaving, you got the president that was misbehaving, you have numbers, you have the company burning through everything that they had raised. You had, I have a lot of LPs who have directly invested, so my name was on the line, as well as structure. After we fired the president, he killed himself.
Whoa.
That week. So this company was imploding, and I felt, and I had to go personally through this in my head. Was there something I could have said differently or done differently? But it was clearly he had a lot of other issues, and it was a very sad time for the company. All the investors wanted to pull out. And there was a CTO that we brought on named Eddie Paloki, and I truly believed in this man, and he truly believed in like 12 people on this team, and he wanted to make this into a SaaS company, and that's where they were heading. And I just felt in my gut that leadership and that 12, the company was about 45 at the time, and so anyway, we shrunk the company to 12 people. We moved them out of these toxic offices. We had to literally, I mean, getting these founders off the board was something that no investor should ever have to go through. It was so difficult because they had controlled the company. But this is where the investors, my LP, stepped up, and they actually put pressure on these founders into such a degree that finally the founders moved out of the company. But without these LPs, I don't know if I would have been able to get this done. The board it was just an incredible time where everybody dug in and said, we are not going to quit. We are just not going to quit. We're not going to just leave this company, as a lot of VCs would have done. But I didn't want to give up. And so the long and short, this past year, this company was purchased by Roe.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just one of the most satisfying moments for me as a venture capitalist and just as a person, because I believed in the people. Yes. And I knew they would build the product. And I also believed in the mission, which is to deliver healthcare, whether it be phlebotomists or MRI techs or dialysis nurses or whatever a patient needs, wherever they need it. So it was everything. It was important to me. And that was to me a big success story. And since we sold the company, and all of us kept our position in it in stock. We didn't take any liquidity. That was just rolled it into Roe. Roe has 5x when you made the sale during the pandemic. I mean, the whole thing was unbelievable. So that's a success. That's a personal and professional success. Don't give up. If you believe in the leadership, if you believe in people and the mission and the values, then you will triumph.
Yeah, and congratulations. And also this speaks to, you kind of mentioned something that I picked up on. With your life being so busy, with you having so many options, you could have easily written this off.
Oh, yeah.
You could have just moved on.
Oh, yeah.
Not even thought about it.
Yeah, and everybody kept telling me, even I've had a lot of people just say, what are you doing? It's one company. They're going to, what are you talking about? You got a suicide, you got a sexual harassment, you've got, incomplete numbers, you've got burning like money, like, marshmallows. Like, what are you doing? Why are you putting your, and that's just not me, like that's what when I sign up with a company, our companies know that we are in there. We're, it's almost like a marriage, for better or for worse. And one thing that people know about structure is we don't give up. Like, we don't give up. We'll go to the mat. And I was on this board from the very beginning, and I went back and forth and the company was in Raleigh. Right. And so on top of that, I had to, keep going back and forth and working with the team and keeping everybody's, hopes. And then I had to raise a little round to save the company, as, when we basically, right, had to completely pivot the company. And how do you cash in on the trust with your LPs? Right? How do you, and it really, at that point, it is cashing in on your own personal currency.
Yes.
Like you say to investors, I will not let this fail.
Yes.
You better damn well make sure you do not let this fail.
I love every aspect of it. Everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong.
Everything.
You still pulled it out and made it one of the biggest successes. That's
Very, very excited about this. Like, very excited. Yeah. So I always tell companies that story when, the poop is hitting the fan, especially during the pandemic. This was like, let me tell you, of a company that had no chance, nothing was going right except for the people. So you can do it. So that's my raw cry. That's my cheer.
Yeah, it's an amazing story of resilience, of belief,
Yeah.
and trust.
Yeah. And you want to know something, the team of WorkPath, which is 80%, engineers, not one of them had gone to school to get a computer science degree. They were all self-taught engineers. That's right. And so they were doing this work because they were so passionate about what they're doing, not because they were schooled that way, because they schooled themselves. And in fact, the founder of the team, the CEO, who then became CEO, Eddie Paloki, started out as a grade school teacher,
Oh,
and then taught himself, then worked and built this trucking platform, and then something else. And I mean, this guy started off as a grade school teacher. Yeah,
if I
unbelievable.
wasn't hearing this from you, I would have said this is fiction.
Right? Completely. You kind of made this up. The whole thing was just, yeah. But I love this. And by the way, Row has done so well by WorkPath. WorkPath has remained its own entity within Row. And in fact, I just set up WorkPath with another big healthcare system as a customer. So I'm just really happy for them. Just really happy for them.
Well, congratulations again. This is amazing.
Thank
So
you.
let's switch gears, Jillian, and get to know you a little better. And I'll keep raising that threshold of my respect to you. Tell us some one-line life lessons that have come to define you, or you have come to define them.
Yeah. Well, I've identified 5. Okay, and the first is a really good transition to the story that I just told about WorkPath. I always say that your word is your honor.
Yes,
Bottom line, you
love
give your word and you say you're going to do something, then you damn well should do it.
that.
And I don't care at what expense it is to you, because your honor is your personal currency.
Yes.
And that is more valuable than anything. And I tell my children this, and I tell my founders this, and I teach this to our founders. Your honor is your word is your honor, hard stop.
Yes.
So that's 1. 2 is, I say to everyone, invest into values, not just valuations.
I love that.
And
Yes.
because, once again, it's usually, most always, the people that fail, not the products. And so if you don't invest in people's and leadership's values, if they don't have and really identify their values with integrity and intentionality, this is going to be a problem for the company. And so I always, when I invest into these founders, I ask them, what are their personal values? Because the values of a company are their North Star. The values of the company are whatever decisions are being made have to be decided against those values. Companies that have values, really very specific, well thought out, well measured values, are the ones that navigate challenges the best. They're also the ones that retain talent and attract talent best. And
And
so
I'm thinking, sorry,
what?
go ahead.
No, go
I was,
ahead.
no, I was saying, I think you know a thing about
Yeah.
intentional integrity.
Agreed, absolutely agreed. My husband, stepped away recently as general counsel of Airbnb. He's lived in integrity his whole life, and he wrote a book called Intentional Integrity: How Smart Companies Drive the Ethics of Evolution. And now he's really helping companies to do this, to drive this into their boards, into their metrics, into their teams. And this is a critical piece of why I invest into values, into the value of the leadership. And then I actually teach 10 values to our companies to make sure that they set up their own values with an understanding that will be their North Star. So first you set up your mission, and then you set up your values.
Yes.
So you set up your mission, your vision, your values. Boop, boop, boop. And that's it. So that's it. Invest in values, not just valuations. That's number 2. So number 3 is a big one. So I say, never lose your self-control, because if you do, you lose your power. And I teach this all the time to teams. And I also really direct this a lot to women, but also men, because every time I say to women that you throw a fit, you break down hysterical crying, you absolutely lose your control. Believe it or not, most men look at women in work, and the first thing, even subliminally, they'll think is, this might be a drama queen. Like something's going to happen and they're going to get emotional. So I say to women, no, because the minute that you lose your self-control, you lose your power, and they win.
Yes.
So this goes for men as well. Keep yourself together. Yeah. Respond in a professional and buttoned up way. Try to hold it. Don't yell. Yelling gets you nowhere. Okay? Don't blow up. Don't lose control. You lose control, you lose respect from your teams. You lose respect from everyone. And guess what? You're never going to get that respect back.
Yes.
Every time you lose your self-control, you lose a little bit of power, a little bit of respect, and slowly and surely it's going to take down everything that you feel is valuable about yourself. So don't lose that's number what? 4? 3.
Yeah.
Right, that was number 3. Okay, yeah. Number 4. I say and it's at the bottom of all of my emails, be tenacious but gracious.
Yes.
Right. So I truly believe that you can be strong, but you can also act with grace. That you should respect other people. You should also live with gratitude of meeting whoever you're meeting, learning whoever you're learning, whatever you're learning. There's a certain amount of grace that has to be conveyed and has to be positioned in life, I believe, for you to actually communicate and be received with your highest potential. My father always says it's style over substance. It's how you say something to someone. It's not just what you say. So you can say something in a strong way, but you can also say it with grace.
Yes.
right? You can just respect who you're talking to and how you're
Mhm.
positioning yourself and how you carry yourself in life. There, so you can be, I am very tenacious.
Mhm.
I am, and I know that about myself, but I always check myself whenever I even get a little too bold. I pull back a little bit and I try to live and I try to act with grace.
It's not easy, right?
It's very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard. And there are times where I haven't, and I haven't acted in a gracious way. And when that happens, I always own it. I always own it. And I always ask for forgiveness. And I think about why I lost, I did not respect that person enough to be gracious with them. So be tenacious but gracious. That's 4. And then 5, I had a hard time. I was going through 2. So I'm going to say one really fast,
Okay.
okay, because it's my grandfather's.
Mhm.
My grandfather was Russian. And he used to say, with a thick Russian accent, he used to say, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes.
Which means where there's a will, there's a way. And that is very me. Like, if I have the will to do something, I'm going to damn well find a way to get it done. It may not be the most easiest way, and might not be the most practical way, and it might not be the way that's going to, save me sleep. But it is if there's a will, there's a way. I truly believe that. But you got to tap in and to realize how much of a will you have in
Mhm.
order to find that way, to really calibrate that level of will, because that really is where it begins. And there are a lot of times we want to do something, but even me will say, you know what, I really want to do this, but do I have this all encompassing will to do it,
Mhm.
that is going to drive me to find the solution, to drive me to find the way. So that's grandpa, where there's a will, there's a way. And the last thing, because it's a 6 and the bonus one, which is better others so they can better you.
Wow.
That's it. And that doesn't need an explanation. I
Mhm.
make it a point of helping others, because in the end, I always better myself by understanding and reaching out to even the most unlikely people, strangers. I talk to I talk to as many strangers as I do people I meet a week. I
Wow.
speak to everybody, because I do believe that each person I speak to, and someone who needs a little help with something, I end up helping myself exponentially. So better others so that they can better you. And that's it. So I gave you 6. Sorry,
Wow.
I couldn't get it
Oh,
to 5.
I would love 60 more. So,
Ah,
no, the more the merrier. This is,
thank you.
when you're being flooded under the a waterfall, and that's what you're seeking, you don't say no to that, right? So,
Yeah, I love that. And funny enough, I love waterfalls. I happen to, Rob and I go all over the world chasing waterfalls. So I think that's really interesting that you said that, because maybe that's where I live. Maybe I live under a waterfall and that's my happiest place. And I never thought about it until this time. But thank you.
no,
But you bettered me.
no, thank you so much for making the time. I know how precious and valuable it is, and for you to take this time out to be with us today, I am honored. And but like I said, we'll take every minute of yours. You have so much to share, so much wisdom, so much knowledge, so much experience, that we would love to keep bringing you back on and learn more about you and the work you do and the work you allow other people to do.
Well, this has really been my pleasure. It really has. And I really appreciate the questions that you provided me with beforehand, because it did it did force me to think about my life. It forced me to think about my work. And sometimes we need that. We need that focus. And so this was actually an honor to do this. And I hope that I offered up some golden nuggets for anybody who's watching, and I really appreciate your invitation today. And I hope that we do have another conversation, and I hope that you and your family are healthy, and that everyone around you can just give each other a long overdue hug. So I'm giving you a big hug and a hug out to the audience. And I thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Jillian. Really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it.